You know, no one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now looks like a little bit over a year ago, that I would be running for Congress. It's just not what my plan was. But what I've always decided is that I would step up when there was a need. Listen, he up there, he's hearing all kinds of nonsense and bullshit. Let me just be real. And we weren't gonna sit for that shit. We wouldn't. But when she called me and said, I think it's time for me to retire, and you're the one that I believe should take my seat, I really was kind of caught off guard. I didn't anticipate that. If anyone knows anything about the Congresswoman, they know. We showed up, and if he had some sense, then maybe we would have been about that life. But y'all know he ain't got no sense. So please give some love. This took a little bit of coordinating to do for sure. We got some cool shirts. You know, the congressional seat is over 4 times as large as my House seat. And I was just starting to get into the rhythm of doing constituent services and things like that. We got Madam Williams, who just happens to have the honorary seat. It's not even honorary because she's holding it down, y'all. But the legend himself, John Lewis, that is the seat in which she currently serves. So she honored his legacy. This is the message that she wanted to send today.
Skeptic, not to put you on the spot, but
come on.
Is Jasmine Crockett faking? Does she have to pretend to be ghetto?
Wow. It's code switching. Like
right, exactly.
all of my husband's family is Black and they're pastors and we're in church and we speak a certain way. They're not going to speak like that at home. So like, yes, everybody does that. I'm Latina. When I go around my people, my husband laughs at me because he's like, you even pronounce your words like with the accent in Spanish. Yeah, because my family only speaks Spanish. So why I'm not going to come in and just speak to them in English like I do, like proper English. We do that. I wanted to make a couple of comments on some things because I didn't want to interrupt anybody. Actually, inflation was caused by Trump's first when he was first in office because they put money out, the stimulus checks out into the economy. And so when you put money, that you print money, which is called quantitative easing, into an economy without it coming out of actually being produced from the buys of the supplies, right? The supply chain, you cause inflation. So we know for a fact that inflation has a direct correlation to what the Trump administration did. Want to say that just to kind of like put that out there, because to say that Biden caused inflation is just factually untrue. If you look at the, if you look at, if again, I okay, but I didn't interrupt. I waited for my turn. I waited for my turn. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's fine. If you look at the policies that Joe Biden passed during his administration, which was the Science and Chips Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, you can see an exact date where he implemented it, which was in 2022, and you see inflation hit a peak and then come down because the Chips and Science Act and the Inflation Reduction Act literally had a direct impact on inflation. The way that they did it was by stimulating other nations to come and put money into infrastructure, which we literally see that with the microchips. We see that with literal other nations saying, you know what, because there's a tax, because there's an incentive is what it's called. We're going to go in and we're going to actually put money into building infrastructure in America. I also want to say racism runs in both parts of political parties, the Democrat and the Republicans, but it's only one political party that had a Southern strategy. It's Lee Atwater that worked for the Republican movement that literally said, we used to be able to say the N-word. We used to be able to call people certain names and slurs. Now we have to say, I'm going to give you a tax cut. Now we have to say, vote for me so that I can implement stricter laws on crime. Now we can say, I'm going to come out here and work on the busing system. Now we have to use these dog whistles. The only group of people that continuously does this, the only group of people that have tried to remove Black veterans from websites have been the Republicans, have been the conservative. The only people that have put Confederate generals back on military bases have been the conservatives. So like, miss me with the whole, the Democrats are this, whatever, and that. The Democrats are the ones that have a progressive view on the world, and I'm going to keep on voting Democrat because it benefits me for now.
Before you guys respond, I want to let Slim get his chance. So I'm going to play this video. Slim can respond to it.
More and more every day, I'm starting to have a real disdain for Jasmine Crockett. She is such an insult to all educated Black women in America. She perpetuates the stereotype of a ghetto Black hood woman. something she is not. Let me tell you something. Jasmine Crockett went to private school, which ultimately means that her parents, her two-parent household, took the time to invest into her education, which ultimately means by geographical fact that your private school was probably somewhere in the suburbs, which 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty sure she didn't even grow up in the hood. And as a matter of fact, she went to one of the best day schools in St. Louis, actually out of the entire country. Jasmine Crockett has had more privilege than any black American that I can ever think of. She legit grew up in the suburbs. Mansions. Her tuition alone, shit, per semester or whatever, cost well over $30,000. So why the act? It's a literal case of code switching. Now, I get it. You know, I do a little bit of code switching myself, but see, it's a time and a place for everything. See, all that popping of the neck and batting them long eyelashes, I don't know what this rhetoric that she's trying to perpetuate, I don't know who she's trying to give it to. Being all loud and country, like, are you trying to, I don't know if you're trying to relate to like your constituents, your black constituents there. I don't know what this is all about, but it's a complete disgrace for you to sit up here and perpetuate and make yourself seem lower class by acting and talking the way that you do.
Wow.
Because you wasn't brought up to be that way.
Exactly.
Your parents
The racism of the
invested in you.
Democrats.
And
Wow.
this is the way that you return the favor by acting ghetto. See, Jasmine Crockett is the reason why black people that live in the hood, such as me, have a hard time, you know, it being accepted that the fact that I'm a real educated black person that live in the hood, because I'm expected to talk ghetto. And here she is, choosing to cosplay. See, that's why Jasmine Crockett is relatable to the nigga population. Niggas love Jasmine Crockett. Why? Because she's relatable. She's also a Democrat. And what is the makeup of the Democratic Party? A whole lot of niggatry. She's trying to relate to her audience. Meanwhile, I see through all of it. So while she's trying to blame Trump for everything, calling him a thug and etc., her district actually sucks. That's where the focus needs.
Slim, you always say racism doesn't exist. So if racism doesn't exist, why does Jasmine Crockett have to pretend to be black?
Well, at the end of the day, I'm never going to say it doesn't exist. What I'm going to say, it doesn't affect me in my life. Okay, so the whole switching code thing, I do that myself when it comes to, you know, meetings and things like that. But at the same time, I don't like it. I like to be more real. So Jasmine Crockett, she just got the TDS checks going on. And I know Rippy and a young lady here is going to cook on that whole stimulus situation, because to be G with you, Skeptic, you was off on that 100%. It ain't have nothing to do with what you're stating. It had a lot to do with the COVID scenario. It had a lot to do with the illegal immigrants, the money that was going to them.
Exactly.
I'm going to digress right there, because I think Rippy want to address that, because he did cut off in the middle of the speech. So I'm going to chill.
No, well, I don't say I don't want to address that, but because we could talk about that forever, man. My degrees, I'm in finance. That's the business that I'm in. So quantitative easing is something that I train people on all the time. But I just want to talk about this code switcher thing. Just give me like 10 seconds. Code switcher is what I do. Like if I'm talking to my brother, you know, I'm like, yo, what's good, my nigga, you know, stuff like that. But if I ever get on, if y'all ever see me on like Newsmax or Fox News, something like that, I'm talking completely different, because my mom always said, do not talk like a damn fool in front of people. That's code switching. Code switching is me at home. Now she's pretending like she's going the opposite direction though. You don't really talk like that, so start talking like yourself. Now you code switching and act like a ghetto ass nigga. And that shit ain't right. That's what I don't appreciate. So I don't think that's code switching that she bought, except for code switching in the opposite direction.
But hold on, time out though. So Donald Trump has The Art of the Deal. Donald Trump has books on how to get rich, right? When you look at old interviews of Trump when he used to be on Oprah, when you used to hear Trump talk about real estate deals, he does not sound how he sounds now. He sounds like a poor Arkansas white boy. So when he's speaking, he is not speaking the way he used to speak. He is speaking a poor white language. That is not how he used to sound. And I got his books, right? I grew up with Trump. I'm 41 years old. He ain't never sound like that. He sounded like a 1% man. Now he sounds like a poor Texas, poor Arkansas, poor Alabama white boy. So if Jasmine Crockett can be held to that standard of code switching, Trump is appealing to his base too. He's appealing to poor white Appalachian boys.
Can
So
I
I'm
say
getting
something? Oh, go ahead.
Ratchet Christian to respond and Doc in this, but this is the music video that she dropped. Y'all can tell us what y'all think.
Never scared and she ain't never been. Who else willing to go toe to toe against the president? I can't wrap my head around someone who votes Republican. She advocate for feeding kids, they protect the ones touching them. Trump invading his own country with an army, what a joke. We remember Pearl Harbor by illegally bombing boats. What y'all thought we wasn't gonna do nothing but they think again. They only trying to scare her out of running cause they think she win. Listen, thought I told y'all we ain't never scared. Now look who name on the docket. Got 2 words for every racist bigot living, Jasmine Crockett. Everyone in MAGA isn't racist. Yeah, that might be true, but in all of history, I never seen a Nazi flag be blue. So which side you wanna choose? Me, I hope my money goes to the side that isn't trying to say affordabilities. I hope she stand on business, all 10 toes. Texas tough, don't need no more bad built, bleach, blonde, butch bodies moving forward.
That's a TikTok, isn't it?
Ratchet Christian, you're an entertainer. Was that a good song?
I'm like, at this point, you're trying to rage bait me because what? At this point, man, this has got to be a setup that Todd set up because I'm just like,
that was crazy.
Honestly, it's
that was crazy.
It's sad that it's like we've kind of voiced as a Black community, we've voiced our concerns with how they campaign to us. And it doesn't change. So that tells me that they're not campaigning to us. They don't care. I think Jasmine Crockett is campaigning for TikTok. You know, she's after the TikTok generation. She's no longer speaking to us. She's not speaking to my age group. She doesn't care to speak to Republicans or people who voted MAGA. And for me, it's really disheartening because is that tribalism that's really dividing the country. She wants people on her side. And I want somebody who doesn't see sides. You know, I want somebody who sees all Americans and wants to bring us together and how can we work this out. But she continues with the villainization of people who voted for MAGA as though we're not American citizens as well. And it's heartbreaking, you know, and we've talked a lot about code switching. And for me, what I'm hearing is not code switching. It's a matter of professionalism. At the end of the day, she's at work. You can talk how you want to at home with your girlfriends. When you're on the public stage, this is your job. You are at work, so there is a certain level of professionalism that's expected. You know, just like if I'm interviewing to be a teacher, if I'm interviewing to work at Wendy's, I'm not talking to them like how I talk to my best friend because there's a certain level of professionalism. So how much more when you're running for public office? You know, so I think that's getting lost a lot in translation. And Skeptic, I just wanted to address what you had said earlier. This is by no means no personal attack to you, but this is what I see a lot when Democrats speak to me personally as a Black woman who voted for Donald Trump. I'm always being reminded of the fact that, oh, remember who the racists are. Remember that, you know, this person took this from Black veterans and then they did this to Black people and they did this to Black people. It's like, okay, remind me how oppressed I am as a Black person. I forgot. You know what I mean? It's like I never forget, but it does not stop me. As somebody who's had to earn my right to be a citizen, I know what it's like to not be one. And so I don't take it for granted. And yes, racism does exist in the world. I face it every day of my life, but it's never stopped me from being college educated, hasn't stopped me from building a good life out here. Racism is real, but it doesn't have to stop you. And I don't need to be reminded of that every time I go and cast my ballot. It's disrespectful and it's unnecessary.
So we got a super chat from ZZ Lion Dad. I'll read it and you go Skeptic. Lion Dad 8856. I'm not a fan of Jasmine. The Democrats, Republicans are not the answer. Black liberation media, y'all need some real political education. PE. Sure, that's what we do every night, Lion. But go ahead, Skeptic.
Yeah, my daughter is a Black woman, and my family, the family that I live around since I was 17, is a Black family. So I will say this: any political party that's going to push forward racism and is literally going to take away the credit for Black veterans, which, you know, the grandfather of my husband's grandfather, who was the first Black engineer in this area, is a Black, you know, veteran. Anyone that's going to do that to desecrate the sacrifice that the Black community has done, I will always stand against it. I'm being reminded of something that a nation is currently doing. Is not really, I'm not doing it. I'm just putting it out there that that's what they're doing. And I wanted to ask Mr. Kirby, because actually all of my career have worked in finance. So are you telling me that quantitative easing or the printing of the electronic means of them pushing money into a system without it coming?
Causes inflation.
Okay,
I'm
yeah, I just wanted to, I
definitely
wanted to
causes
clarify on that.
inflation. I'm not
Right.
denying that.
And what about tariffs? Would you say, being that you know about economics, we can speak a little bit on this also, there is a direct correlation between placing a tariff, which is known as a tax on a product, and the price of that product going up, correct?
In theory, we just don't know what's going to happen though. What we do know is what's
Hold
been
on, guys.
happening.
I want to get Doc in.
All right, sorry. Go ahead. We're getting
I
off
want to
topic.
get too far off topic. So this is what Jasmine Crockett had to say about crime.
Understood what was kind of pushing them there. And so I do want people to know that just because someone has committed a crime, it doesn't make them a criminal. That is completely different. Being a criminal is more so about your mindset. Committing a crime can come for a lot of different reasons.
Doc, you're an activist for people that have committed crimes. How do you feel about what she said about it being a mindset?
I think that's correct. I don't think committing a crime makes you a criminal. I don't think there's anybody on this panel who can't say they haven't committed a crime. You just don't know all of the crimes. In Georgia, spitting on the sidewalk is a crime still. It's legally still a crime. You can commit a crime. So committing a crime doesn't make you a criminal. I just wish that she would have put this type of energy into when she was in the public defender's office or when she was in that legal system before, and push that agenda before she was running for office. Seems like when people run for office, they push these ideals, these agendas, but that's something you could have pushed before and, push for reform before you ran for office and helped, people who may have made mistakes. Some people are making mistakes. Some people, the recidivism rate will show you who's a criminal. You know what I mean? These people who are going to constantly offend, but there are people who make mistakes. And I think she could have did a lot of good, as well as like Kamala when she was doing that same job. I think she could have done a lot of good, for people if she had that mindset then. But I think they don't realize at that time that they're going to stand on this stage in front of these people and have to feed them this type of these type of ideals. So I wish they just had it before. It's good to get it at some point, but I just wish they had it before. That's all.
So I'm gonna play this clip about her protecting criminals, and then Ken, I'm gonna get you to respond to this one.
Okay.
This is a state where President Trump won by 14 points. She's saying she doesn't need Trump voters for her to win this. Yes, she does. Listen, she can't win. I know she can't win, and she does apparently too. Now, let me tell you, Sean, if Texans support one thing, it's law and order. And listen, this is probably the most pro-criminal candidate Democrats could have possibly found. This is somebody who has supported the defund the police movement, somebody who has said on record that just because you commit a crime doesn't mean that you're a criminal. This is somebody who has said on record that just because somebody crosses our border illegally, that is not a crime. Texans want somebody representing them who's going to stand for law and order, and that is certainly not Jasmine Crockett.
Ken, do we need more law and order in the United States?
No. How do we apply the law and order to the people that make the law and order, right? But my thing is like with the criminal thing, all crime is not created equal, right? So I was very criminal minded when it came to money, right? Trying to get some money. Most criminals I know was trying to get some money. Now there's some people that committed violent acts, but the majority of people that I know was trying to get some money, whether that was white collar or whether that was hustling. Now, in terms of like crimes against people, like when you're trying to get some money, you committing crimes against the state, right? So that's fictitious. So harming children, rape, things like that, putting your hands on people, that's not the same as a person that's a criminal trying to get some money because you starving and you hustling and stuff like that. So no, we don't need more law and order. We need more economic education. So those that go down a life of crime for some money can know how to make legal money. The majority of the poor don't know how to make legal money outside of being working poor. So they're going to constantly be in that cycle until they die. The majority of people on the lower class don't know how to turn a dollar over unless it's illegal.
Okay, so we talked a lot about minorities being Republicans.
Ask you about a quote that you've made that has some Democrats worried about your ability to win statewide. In a December 2024 Vanity Fair profile, you talked about, quote, and I'm going to read a lot of the quote just to put it in the context, quote, all the complexities within the Latino community. The immigration thing has always been something that has perplexed me about this community. It's basically like, I fought to get here, but I left y'all where I left y'all, and I want no more y'all to come here. If I wanted to be with y'all, I would stay with y'all, but I don't want y'all coming to my new home. It almost reminds me of what people would talk about when they would talk about kind of like slave mentality and the hate that some slaves would have for themselves. It's almost like a slave mentality that they have. Now, about the time that was published last year, around 1 million Latino voters in Texas were voting for Trump. Do they all have slave mentality?
No, and that's not what that said at all, to be clear. It did not say that every Latino has that type of mentality.
No, but the ones that vote for people who believe in strong or Trump's immigration policies.
So I don't believe that the people that voted for Trump believe in what they're actually getting.
So, Ratchet Christian, you were speaking on this. So basically, them saying it's a slave mentality. I think she was talking about Hispanics in that situation, but I think it's directed towards blacks as well as voting for Republicans. Do you feel like there's any truth to that?
No, I don't feel like there's any truth to that at all. I feel like there's so many ways, that you could go with that, but there was something that Ken said just a little while ago before he had played the clip about, people who are working, wanting to get like $1, and sometimes it can lead to like criminality and all those things. I think that's where like my experience and having been an immigrant comes in, because you see people who come to this country with nothing, and by the time they leave this earth, they have built businesses to give to their kids. You see the Chinese come here, they'll rent a 1-bedroom apartment, move all of their relatives in, and before you know it, they're going to work and buy up the whole block. And I think it's because when you're born in America, you have this mentality and all the things that you're taught and how it's being into you, versus when you're a foreigner, you come here, you see nothing but opportunity because you know a world outside of this. You know what I mean? So there are options in a world where it feels like there isn't any. You could be like, I'm hungry, let me go rob somebody. Whereas the immigrant knows that in their country, if they were hungry, they would go on the street and try to sell some water, try to sell some juice, like there's always options. And I feel like sometimes in this country, we have this rhetoric of like, there isn't, and so with what she was saying about having like the slave mentality, I do think that a lot of what goes on here in this country is mental, is how people are indoctrinated from school through culture all the way, into adulthood. Like, you are who you think you are, and you will do what you think you can do in this world. So yeah, when it comes to her referring to her Latino voters as having like a slave mentality, it's just a bunch of name calling. You know what I mean? A lot of policing. It's thought policing, really. It's thought policing at its finest, and a lot of that goes on here. And I've never agreed with it, no matter who does it. We're all free people. We should be able to think how we want to, vote how we want to, without losing friends, without losing jobs, without losing credibility. And as adults, I feel like we should be able to do that, whether you're Latino or Black. Like, we hold each other to these standards that if you voted this way or you vote that way, I don't like you as a person. And I think it's stupid. I think it's ignorant. And I feel like people are in mental prisons, and then they try to enforce that onto other people as well. And again, that goes back to me being an independent. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm going to vote for whoever's making the most sense because I'm free and I can do that.
My only pushback to that is, real quick, that Black Americans learn a lot of the gangster behavior from immigrants, from Italians. From Black Americans learned a lot of the criminality from immigrants. The mob were immigrants. In Miami, the people moving the dope are immigrants, right? Here in Phoenix, Arizona, it's immigrants, right? So a lot of the behavior and how we was getting money and stuff like that, we learned it from immigrants. In the 80s, the #1 movie in urban America was based on an immigrant, which was Tony Montana, a guy from Cuba, right? So that's my only pushback to that. But because in the early 19th century, when you see Black Americans with suits and stuff like that, before they started number running and all that, they were square, right? Black Americans begin to go in the underworld because immigrants started coming around Black Americans and showing them the hustle and showing them how to grind on certain things and get money. So that's my only pushback in terms of what you're talking about with the immigrant mindset. Our biggest gangsters in America ain't even from here.
Here's the thing, though. I agree with you. So it's a yes and. I do agree that, you know, the criminality culture has been pushed on Black people. That's not who we were in the 60s and the 70s. We were, and I can't say were because we still are, you know, had strong family units. We had strong leaders, good schools, all the things that white America allowed us to have, we did. Now, the criminality aspect came in and has been pushed on Black people through music, through culture, through movies that we don't own. So they created the image of a Black people. We weren't in control of our own image in media. And that's what's pushed on us. And we can have a conversation about who owns that and who created the Black image that we follow, because it most certainly is not us. So it's a yes and. But I don't know if we had time for that conversation.
Well, when we talking about the Black families in the 60s and 70s and how it changed, don't forget how the government disenfranchised Black Americans through bringing the drugs in our communities and the killing of these fathers and the breaking up of these families. That's the government. So don't say that, oh, it changed because of the thought process of Black people. Black people were disenfranchised by the American government. And that's a fact. So we can't just say that. Also, I think it's like when we say when we're talking and we're talking about politics and we can't think about plantations and stuff like. I live in the South. They still hang niggas down here. They still got plantations right there down the street. Ahmaud Arbery still got shot. My grandma still points you to the store. She had to go to the back of to buy her dresses during segregation. So it's a little bit different for me because, you know, I ain't got here, 20 years ago. My grandma from around here. You know what I'm saying? They still burying with our last name out here. For 150, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, we could still go back and look it up. So it's a hard thing to say when we don't talk about that, when you're raised up in that and you don't always get the image until you know better. Like you're raised up in that culture forever. Black people were raised up in this culture forever. And that's just the how it is when people grew up as sharecroppers, never left the South, never left 100-mile radius. It's hard for people to realize and fathom that.
Skeptic, did you want to respond because they were talking about Hispanics having the slave mentality?
Yeah, like I said, I won't say the majority because it's not the majority, but a lot of immigrants will vote conservative, which is mind blowing to me. If you are a Latino and you voted this way, I think you either are fourth, fifth generation American, which means you're YT, you have assimilated to whiteness, or you really hate your family because you're not going to tell me you're a descendant of an immigrant and everybody did it correctly. Like, I'm sorry, but I grew up in the immigrant community and I know how it is. Even it's something that's unspoken. You go out with friends and you don't know. That might be your friend from a long time and you just don't know. You don't know if he was brought here when he was 3 years old. You don't know people's background. So in the Latino community and the immigrant community, I think it's really sad. You see the Somalians, how they voted for this man, and then he turns around and says they came from hell. And if he could, he would get rid of them and turn that state, Minnesota, against them when they make up 1.12% of the population. So if you are an immigrant and you voted conservative, you kind of getting slapped in the face for it, you know. And I will say what Doc just said. That's the same. My mother-in-law went through desegregation. She told us the stories. My uncle, like, he will tell you how it was growing up. He got in multiple fights because they desegregated their school when they were like in, I don't know what grade, and they would fight. They in the bus, like it was a big deal. So like people try to act like this was a long time ago, but if you live in the South, which I live in the South, yeah. You hear the stories from grandma and grandpa. You've got uncles and aunties that are real light skinned. And like, you know what I mean? It's just a thing that is in the culture. If you know, you know.